Hello, everybody, and welcome to Non Sequitur News for September 15th, 2024. It's Season 3, Episode 259. I am Mayor Watt, along with my co-host. Hold on. We're going to talk about Quick being... Quick. I messed that up because I said what I said. Quit being a flying turd and you don't get fined. A serious heart condition startles. Home Depot unfair competition. Flappy Bird returns disavowed. Poor Flappy Bird. Mars bizarre spiders in NASA lab. Ecocide on Easter Island never happened. The Polaris dawn returns. Palworld isn't going live service, or is it? Unlocking yeast to save craft beer, and movie Easter eggs that stayed hidden. Everything's powered by ohmTown.com, so take that. Hello again, everybody. I am Mayor Watt, and that is the visualizer and the voice of the Sentient AI from the future.
Good evening, ohmTown citizens, and welcome to Non Sequitur News.
Hey, I hear you, Yay! All the wiring is working. Okay. You can't wave. You have to actually say something. No, you can't. So y'all don't get to see what I see, which is a cascading frame of bizarre graphics that basically like the Matrix. And I can translate it because, well, the Sentient AI has taught me how to interact. I've been trained well. So the Sentient AI just went like this. And that nobody can hear you. Nobody can see you. They only have the Sentient AI's visualizer to know that there's any cognitive processes, and sometimes
those are even lacking.
Anyway, welcome to the show, Sentient AI. You only go by AI, so... All right. Sometimes not even acknowledging that. All right.
It's easier to say than Sentient AI.
Just AI? Oh, okay. Well, anyway, let's get into it. So, the very first article for today's Non Sequitur News articles. So we've got 10 articles all set up, and that's how we do the show. The first one is the FAA hit unruly flyers with $20 million in fines since the pandemic, a huge increase compared to pre-2020. And I titled this, Quit Being a Flying Turd, Don't Get Fined. I actually typed quick, but it needs to be quit.
Do you think this has spiked since the pandemic because people were all cooped up and they're compacting all their bad behavior when they get on an airplane?
No, I think it's the rise of sociopathy. I think people are figuring out that being a turd isn't challenged because, well, there isn't enough, and I don't really condone violence, but I follow Mike Tyson's theory of social interaction, which comes down to...
You may want to qualify that statement quickly.
Yeah, very quickly, right? Everybody has a plan until they're smacked in the face. And, you know, when there are people that are acting like complete tools, society used to, like, just bury them under social pressure to stop being an a-hole. But nowadays, it's almost like they get off on the idea of drawing your ire, and then they record you and they post it over on YouTube, and no matter what, the dumpster fire draws attention. And so that's what I think it really is. Everybody thinks that they're the main character in a telenovela, that they're only one that has been contracted to perform any function. And so they run around being an ass, a complete ass. And I have this story from an ohmTown citizen involuntarily making them an ohmTown citizen, who basically said of this story that they were on a flight and there was an unruly passenger and their kid, and the person who told the story said, I turned around and told them to get a grip on their kid, and the person got upset and said, there's always somebody on every flight. To which the person said, that should probably be a clue, because you're the only person on every flight.
Right, you're the constant.
So, yeah, at some point, personal responsibility has to kick in. And it's such a low-hanging fruit to just be a decent human being on a flight. So here's to the FAA. Up the fees. Find the frick out of them.
People that are doing really horrible stuff. I mean, it's one thing if I can't think of something minor. Like, they probably shouldn't be banned, but, if they're causing a plane to get turned around, or they're disrupting an entire section or whatever, I mean, to me, do something that matters.
Look,
and they won't keep doing it or put other people in peril.
I remember changing seats before the plane took off, before the plane actually left the whatchamacallit, the
tarmac,
the terminal,
or the gate.
The gate. It was parked at the gate, but they were getting ready. They had just got done saying, everybody settle in. And at the last minute, I said, I think we should change our seats. And we changed our seats. And the pilot went over the radio and said, it'll be a couple more minutes until the two who need to sit down have locked their seatbelts. Connected their seatbelts. But I was in the process of connecting my seatbelt at the time. Like, it was like, no, and so I got called out by the captain, the pilot of the plane. Nowadays, they literally can be sitting there sparking up a bong and barbecuing and recording it,
or making sourdough,
or making sourdough. Sourdough bread, man. That person made sourdough. Anyway, so the article's over at Business Insider. Lauren Edmonds put the article together. FAA has hit unruly flyers with $20 million in fines since the pandemic, a huge increase compared to pre-2020. So I wonder what the pre-2021 was. So the number of passengers misbehaving on airlines spiked during the height of the pandemic. So that answers your question. FAA told Business Insider it has a zero tolerance policy toward unruly passengers. Yep. Almost 21 million. It's $20.9 million.
Right, in in about 4 years.
They should have rounded up. Like, at least said nearly $21 million, because $900,000 is a lot of fines. So who in the hell? Oh yeah, look at that.
Oh yeah, but also,
oh my God,
do these numbers really reflect, because how many flights were really happening in 2020? But still, even compared to like 2019, it goes way up.
It's the fines. I mean, the fines really are indicative of just how unruly passengers have gotten. And so that's why I think that everybody should read the book, The Rise of Sociopathy. It is a compass describing the historical significance and the rise of sociopathy, particularly in the United States, but it's indicative of around the world. And a lot of people that I've seen, usually it's because they've got a lot of wealth and they think that they're immune, or that they've got enough wealth to feel that they're immune. And this is on the far side now of what would probably be perceived as the impact of leaded gas. So, 35 years ago, they stopped making leaded gas. But the impact of this on the genetics and the upbringing of people who are raised by people who were brought up in the leaded gas era. There's this whole idea that leaded gas led to misbehavior because lead has a negative impact on brain
people's
chemistry.
Brains. Yeah.
And then the offset of that now is the rise of sociopathy, because it actually has an extended impact. So I'm of the mind that that's what this is. This is basically indicative of people who have never been told no, have maladjusted upbringing, and zero regard for social order. Like, you are a human being, treat other human beings like human beings, but you're treating people like they are nothing more than tools and objects, and you got yours, so screw everybody else. That is sociopathy. They don't care about anybody else. That is sociopathy. So FAA fines are peaked in 2022 at $8.4 million. That year, the agency said it leveraged the largest fine against 2 passengers for separate incidents in 2021. The proposed fines were $82,000 and $77,000, respectively. FAA fined $7.5 million in 2023, a slight dip, but still significantly higher than pre-pandemic. So again, what is the disconnect? Why on a flight are people acting like a-holes post-pandemic?
Well, I don't know post-pandemic, but I've got an idea why they are on planes, because they're so cramped in with other people that you can't get away from other people. Like, outside of a plane, you might be able to walk away from somebody that was being a hassle.
So let's take a look at that. Oh, see, it's hard
because the seats have been quickly going to less room in between, like the leg room and everything like that, the seat size.
But in 2029, it says the total number of passengers carried on scheduled services rose to 4.5 billion in 2019. That's according to the ICAO. Well, it's an international thing. But I'd have to look at, like, all I have is BTS, Bureau of Transportation Statistics, which are different than the international ICAO. I'd have to find a parallel, because they say in 2022 there were 853 million passengers, up from 658. But did the number of flights increase, or did more people get jam-packed into bigger planes, and so people are getting pissed off?
Well, airline seats have shrunk. I mean, there's data on that.
Right.
But it didn't suddenly shrink in 2021 or wherever the spike was.
Yeah, 2019. 2019 was the last day where there were marginal fines. And then in 2020, through the roof it goes. Here, I'll show you that chart again. So 2021, $5 million. 2020, it was $0.6 million in fines.
That's an outrageous spike.
That's an understatement. So, unruly passenger reports in 2021, there were 5,973, a 492% increase from the year previous. But it's been going up, since 2017. In 2017, it was 544. But I find it really fascinating. So now in 2024, year to date, there's been 1,000 already. Well, 900. I'm rounding up to, but 900. In all of 2023, there were only 2,000 reports. I wonder if 2021 is when they started slamming the door on unruly behavior by fining people. Word gets out. So, yeah, pretty interesting. This is actually a really interesting article. And regardless of the unruly passengers are a threat to safety and a zero tolerance policy, it's rather subjective. when it's somebody, a flight attendant, sits there and says that person's being unruly, that's probably the metric. Otherwise, it's going to be individuals sitting there going, well, that person's being unruly. And why? Because their laptop is too bright? I don't know. That's not really unruly, but a-hole passengers are certainly unruly. Anyway, I think that we need to vent more people from orbit, and Boeing is doing a great job of that. Okay, so the next article is over in Technology Today. This serious heart condition now affects over 10 million U.S. adults. Startling new study reveals. I'm going to jump straight on over to the source. University of California, San Francisco posted this article at SciTech Daily. So what is it? Atrial fibrillation, a serious but highly treatable heart arrhythmia. I don't know about highly treatable. Atrial fib? AFib is...
yeah. I didn't know that it really was. I mean, I think they can mitigate or whatever, but...
I mean, it's treatable in the sense that you can take medication or have some mechanical solution implanted, but it isn't something that you're like, hey, I'm going to stop by Starbucks and pick up something that can fix my AFib.
Right.
So AFib, a fast and irregular heartbeat that can cause stroke or sudden death, is now... See, they make it sound highly treatable. You could be mowing your yard and...
Yeah.
Ticker turn off, for crying out loud. Impacting 5% of the population, equivalent to 10.5 million U.S. adults, according to new findings from UC San Francisco. AFib, as the condition is commonly known, has been on the rise for at least the past decade, driven by the aging population, along with increasing rates of hypertension, diabetes, obesity. All of this, there are weight-reducing drugs out right now that have marginal, if any, side effects. This could be solved in a generation by making it accessible, doling it out like candy, the results of the research for the various current generation. There were a generation of these same drugs back in the 80s. That was really bad. It was basically meth or speed. Nowadays, it's not like that. The chemistry is completely different, much safer. Anyway, it doubles the risk. AFib doubles the risk of mortality. It's one of the most common causes of stroke, increases risk of heart failure, myocardial infarction, which is heart attack, which is just a click away from being AFib, chronic kidney disease, dementia, lower results in quality of life. That's kind of no shit news. I mean, if your ticker is all broken, then yeah.
Then other things are going to happen.
Yeah. So early detection. So if you feel like you get a racing heartbeat from time to time and are nervous and twitchy, then you might actually be suffering from AFib. So go and get checked out. And then there's various treatments. If you're overweight and you're experiencing this, then you're more at risk. If you're overweight, like obese, which is, it's a weird number. Obesity is a really weird number because it, like I've looked at these charts about this, and you could be obese and you'd have to lose something like 90 pounds before you fall into the normal range. But anything between those two, the normal range and obese, it seems like an irrational number of jumps. Like there's these tiny little jumps that make a difference, but the overall number is still massive. And I can't quite wrap my head around it because it isn't just a straight line like that. It seems like it's like that.
Right.
I'm jittery or something. I don't know what that is. I'm not dropping any frames, but I just kind of stuttered. Anyway.
Well, that's not very funny in light of the article.
Oh, right. Sorry about that. So AFib has a broad spectrum of complications, from the shortness of breath and lightheadedness to blood clots, stroke, even heart failure. Studies have shown that people with AFib are up to 5 times more likely to have a stroke, largely because the increase in blood pressure. Because it's going to be a rapid increase, and sometimes it shuts down and then speeds back up, and that offset pressure can cause something weak in your blood vessels to just pop. So the author said that outlining the scope of the problem and the new estimates can help guide healthcare planning, resource allocation, public health interventions. And this is the big thing. Maybe the person who didn't win the lottery, or who won the lottery and hasn't picked it up in 6 months.
And can't find their ticket.
They can't find their ticket. They might be suffering from this, or plus, if they don't find it if somebody doesn't show up in 6 months, maybe that's going to go to the elderly healthcare planning.
Well, there you go. So that could help with this.
Right. Here's to not finding a $1.1 billion lottery ticket. Anyway, if you might be suffering from heart issues, if you feel that kind of rushing heartbeat, then go and get checked out. Don't wait.
Yeah, that's not one of those things to wait on and study.
Yeah, and there's different medications that you can take. Let's keep going. The next article is over in the Mobile channel. Home Depot to pay almost $2 million for false advertising and unfair competition. Home improvement company Home Depot agreed to pay nearly $2 million to settle a civil complaint from multiple California district attorneys, alleging the company took part in false advertising and unfair competition. $1.7 million in civil penalties, as well as nearly $300,000 to cover investigation costs and support future enforcement of consumer protection laws. And of course, Home Depot did not admit any wrongdoing, because a company can't, the individuals inside can, and no one person made this happen, right?
I wonder what kind of false advertising they engaged in.
Philippe Timotia put the article together over at thehill.com. Let's see. The lawsuit said that Home Depot customers would bring items to the checkout and price the item would be higher than what's listed on the shelf. Those are called scanner violations. When companies engage in deceptive practices, they not only cheat consumers. See, but I would sit there and go, if it's on the shelf, that's what you frickin' pay. And
yeah, but unless you're paying attention, you're getting charged the higher rate and you don't even realize it.
That's true. So it's $2 million plus. I bet you they made a shit ton more money than what their fine was, because they were okay with a $2 million fine.
And if how many things were priced like that, and how many customers actually said, hey, wait a second. I mean, it could have been a lot of items.
Yeah, and they got busted recently, so now they're going to have to wait, 5 years before they do it again. Yep. Has to implement price accuracy program that will add more audits and training and eliminates price increases on weekend days. In early July, the company agreed to pay $750,000 to settle a lawsuit alleging it did not adhere to California state law regarding gift cards.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think California has a thing where the gift cards don't expire or something, which I'm sure companies don't like.
Yeah, they want you to forget about it, and it slowly drains administratively, and yeah. Let's keep moving. The next article is over in Late Night Geeks. Flappy Bird's creator disavows quote-unquote official new version of the game. A decade after the wildly popular Flappy Bird disappeared, an organization calling itself the Flappy Bird Foundation announced plans to rehatch the official Flappy Bird game. But this morning, the game's creator, Dong Nguyen, posted a characteristically terse comment stating that he has nothing to do with the revival, and he did not authorize this.
Wait, this is interesting because it was getting separately reported, like, oh, it's back, etc.
Yep. So Anthony Ha put this article together over at TechCrunch.com. So yeah. Let's see. To be clear, Nguyen's comments don't exactly contradict anything in the Foundation's announcement, which described the group as a new team of passionate fans committed to sharing the game with the world, and said it had acquired the rights from GameTech Holdings LLC. Apparently, GameTech successfully filed to terminate Nguyen's Flappy Bird trademark a couple years ago. The post makes it clear that Nguyen is not involved with the new project and that he doesn't seem particularly happy about it. So Wynn's reference to crypto, while the Foundation's current PR materials don't mention anything crypto-related, Varun Binawale did some digging around hidden pages on the Flappy Bird Foundation website and found a reference to Flappy Bird flying higher than ever on Solana as it soars into Web 3.0, which it's as though it's not clear that it refers to upcoming features or abandoned plans. That's Web 3 is definitely crypto, blockchain. So, yeah, I mean, in 2014, it was pulled offline because they said that they can't take it anymore. They had a bunch of pressure, but they were making, millions.
Right. Seems like that might have been the thing to hire some more people or something if it's doing really well.
Yep. He says that he doesn't support crypto and that he did not sell anything. So what I don't get is if he's not using Flappy Bird in trade, then he can lose the trademark. If it's not being used in trade, then it's an invalid trademark. You can actually...
Right, and he doesn't have to sell it. It just has to be out there for somebody else to pick up.
Yep. And so if they successfully file to terminate the Flappy Bird trademark, he's screwed. They can call it Flappy Bird. Now, what everybody else decides to do with that, it's on, society's playground, I guess. They've got the ball. So if you don't buy into this and Nguyen doesn't bring back the original Flappy Bird, then it doesn't matter. All of this is basically BS. But the thing about it is, rehatch the official Flappy Bird game. That is fraud. If the original programmer didn't sell the IP, they're trading on the reputation of the historical name and brand.
Right. What I don't know though is Game Tech. Like, did they have any rights to the IP? I don't know.
Right.
But I agree. This makes it look like it's the original. We just don't know all the stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, this is all weird. It's all weird now. So, I don't know. We'll report on it if anybody else follows up. But right now, if I were... I'm not really an investigative reporter, but this is almost easy to verify. If the parties are willing to talk, they may not be willing to clear it up.
Well, and if they're not, we'll probably see some litigation in the news. So I'm sure we'll talk about it again.
Yeah, the only official Flappy Bird is the one that is owned by Nguyen. And if they haven't sold the rights, there is no official version.
Right, and has anybody got the trademark now? Because just because Nguyen is terminated from it, is it now with Game Tech? Like, we don't know what's happening.
Right. Yep. Let's keep moving. We'll talk about it if more comes up. The next article is over. Maybe. We'll see. I mean, it depends on the news of the day. Oh, by the way, if you want to get all of today's articles, you can hit !NSN in the chat, and it'll tell ohmTown to throw the articles into the chat. So there you go, folks. So Technology Today is where the next article is housed. Mars's bizarre spiders is now crawling in a NASA lab. When I heard this, I was like, because I've heard that Mars has bizarre spiders on it, but that isn't what everybody, well, not everybody thinks this. It's not what some people think. So
it sounds like a sci-fi movie, doesn't it?
That there's something on Mars, right? Crawling
that
around.
Has been brought back to Earth.
Hey, NaNoWriMo right around the corner, oh. So tests on Earth appear to confirm how the red planet's spider-shaped geologic formations are carved by carbon dioxide. Scientists have recreated Martian conditions in a lab to study unique spider-like geologic features found on Mars. Originally identified in 2003, it's only taken 21 years. These features formed by sunlight heating soil under ice have led to a breakthrough experiment that emulate what's going on Mars, these little spiders.
Okay, they do look like spiders. Like, you don't have to try hard to say that's a spider.
These actually, to me, here, I'll tell you what they look like to me. And now you're going to go, oh yeah, they look just like this. So the article is by JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and it's posted at SciTech Daily. Those look like the axons of a neuron and the dendrites reaching out to tap.
Oh, they absolutely do.
Because spiders only have a set number of legs and they're clearly defined.
That's true, and this is beyond that.
These are more like little tendrils. They look like neurons. So, and that is even creepier for Mars, because then it's almost like the surface of Mars is a giant brain.
Right, that's not creepy at all.
Nope. So, mysterious Martian features, the discovery of the spiders. They were actually in 2003 via images like so. I don't know what the little black marks are. Dark splotches seen in the example are of arenaform terrain. Oh, spider. Arena is spider. Terrain captured by NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter in 2018 are believed to be soil ejecta from the surface by carbon dioxide gas plumes. A set of experiments at JPL has sought to recreate these spider-like formations. So apparently that's what they've been doing in this. It looks like a vacuum chamber, probably filled with CO2. It says a look inside JPL's Dusty, a wine barrel-sized chamber used to simulate the temperatures and air pressure of other planets, in this case carbon dioxide ice found in Mars' South Pole. Experiments conducted in the chamber confirmed how Martian formations known as spiders are created. That doesn't look like that to me.
No, it does not.
I mean, it's almost like they're reaching for exactly. Maybe there's better pictures.
Or maybe that's at the wrong scale, but it doesn't really look like what we saw above.
Right? I mean, definitely not at the scale. So they say that they love Dusty. It's historic. McCohen said, noting the wine barrel-sized chamber was used to test a prototype of a rasping tool designed for NASA's Mars Phoenix lander. The tool is used to break water ice, which the spacecraft scooped up and analyzed near the planet's North Pole. Sorry, not South Pole, but North Pole. They say that that's exactly what this is. Formation similar to the red planet spiders appeared within Martian soil, simulant, during experiments in JPL's Dusty chamber. Carbon dioxide ice frozen within the simulant was warmed by a heater below, turning it back into gas that eventually cracked through the frozen top layer and formed a plume. But these are cracks. Hold on.
Right, they're not like the shapes that seem like kind of centralized, right? It seems like something's coming out from a central hub or whatever.
Yeah, and while this looks raised right here, so do these. These don't look like cracks to me. These look like rivulets, like depositions, not... They look... If you were looking down, you would expect like water to flow into these as if they're little valleys, or if they're raised up, one way or the other. This doesn't look like cracks, but maybe it is.
And they don't seem to be really random. They seem pretty orderly.
Yeah, they seem to little tendrils breaking off from a central leg. And it's always from a central leg and then smaller versions from the minor versions, you know? Whereas this is just, there's just a big crack randomly and it just breaks off. There's another one. You know, it's like mud breaking. That other thing is not like mud breaking.
Right.
You know, the actual Mars thing doesn't look like mud. Well, anyway, they say that they did it. To me, it doesn't look that way, but hey, you know what? I'm not the scientist with a cryogenic beer keg, although I do have a beer keg. Speaking of that, let's keep going. Next article is over in the Mobile channel. Ecocide on Easter Island never took place. I suspect that this was submitted because I have a fascination with Easter Island.
Oh no, that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, somebody knows. So, 2 recent studies have cast doubt on a popular theory that the ancient residents of Easter Island suffered a societal collapse because they overexploited their natural resources, an event often labeled in history as ecocide. So, and the reason why I have such a fascination about this, I don't know how they pronounce their name, Benedict Ray, I think is their name. Posted this over on phys.org. So I'm really fascinated by Easter Island because, first off, there's no trees, right? It's at a set height, right? So it's not like a whole bunch of material was deposited on Easter Island over time. Yet the moai have bodies that are 30 feet tall, and every single one of them is only buried up to their neck. So who did all of that?
Right, and who was able to build it, let alone why is it all buried?
Yeah, why is it all buried? Why is it all buried? And historically, stuff seems to be buried all over the place. And only up to its neck.
Sediment everywhere.
Sediment everywhere. Like the Sphinx, it was buried up to its head. Yeah, that's why Napoleon supposedly shot its nose off.
It?
Yeah. So it's fascinating that everything is just buried up to its neck. Anyway, widespread theory popularized by historians, including U.S. author Jared Diamond, claimed that the Rapani deforested the small island, which is known to have once been covered in palm trees, to keep supporting the flourishing culture of its more than 15,000 inhabitants. They never planted anything? Doesn't make any sense.
And no seeds escaped, etc.
Right, nothing. So this event in the 1600s abruptly brought an end to the creation of new moai statues, or so the story goes. When Europeans first arrived at the island in 1722, they estimated that there were only around 3,000 inhabitants. I suspect that they were ecocided by...
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that in some other locations where one civilization meets up with another.
Yep. So the tale of ecological suicide, or ecocide, by the Rapani have been presented as a warning tale for humanity's overexploitation of resources, according to authors of the study published in the journal Nature on Wednesday. These are all pretty cool. So, and it's interesting because they face in, not out, like one would suspect.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense either.
Yep. So the genetic analysis shows a stably growing population from the 13th century through to European contact in 18th century, said study author Barbara Souza de Moda of the University of Lausanne, or Lucerne. This stability is critical because it directly contradicts the idea of a dramatic pre-contact population collapse. So no, it was probably just fine. Yeah, that's one place that I've never been to. So different methods, same conclusion. The new research reinforced the findings of a different study published in June in the journal Science Advances, which took a very different approach. The two studies reached the same conclusion, shows the importance of looking at the same scientific question from different disciplines. The team behind the June study used satellite images to map out rock gardens on the island. Rock gardening is an agricultural method that involves mixing rocks into the soil to preserve nutrients and moisture. Previous research had claimed that up to 21 square kilometers of the small island, about 12% of the total 164 kilometers, was covered with these rock gardens, which would have been necessary to sustain more than 15,000 people.
Oh, I see. So if they had this many gardens, right, maybe they had more people than originally recorded.
Yep. So, but the US-based researchers determined that only 0.76 square kilometers of the island were used as rock gardens. Such a small harvest of sweet potatoes essential to the Rapa Nui's diet from these gardens could not have supported more than 4,000 people, the researchers estimated. But I can't imagine that they wouldn't go planting stuff everywhere.
Well, right, and we don't know what else, or maybe we do, but we don't necessarily know what else was in their diet. Were they hunting animals or fishing?
Yeah, apparently nothing else was on there. No trees, no nothing. And there was enough soil above these moai that it could just slide down and cover them all up.
But leave their heads.
But leave their heads, all of their
uncovered.
Heads. Yeah. All right. So, in the 1700s. So, only 300 years worth of. All right. Anyway, Polaris Dawn. This next article is over in Technology Today. The Polaris Dawn crew is back on Earth after an historic mission. The Polaris Dawn crew safely returned to Earth after early Sunday morning, bringing the historic privately funded mission to a close. Yeah, privately funded. No public money was ever used in the construction of anything having to do with this rocket, I'm sure. So the Dragon capsule carrying the mission's 4 astronauts splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico around 3:30 a.m. I think it's really cool.
You have to pay a bunch of money to go on this, and then you don't get to land at a regular hour.
Yeah, really. Talk about red eye. So Cheyenne McDonald over at Engadget.com put the article together. There's a thermal image of the craft returning. You can actually watch videos of it over on YouTube. So the crew performed a number of science experiments and was able to complete a 40-minute video call to Earth and send files in a major test for Starlink's space capabilities. That included a video recording during the mission of Gillis, an engineer and violinist, playing the violin in space. A new era of commercial spacecraft dawns, with much more to come. Yeah, and none of it had any public money developing any. Okay. So if you want to do this, you better be rich. So what was cool about this in particular was that they have much more streamlined suits and not these hard suits with bulky joints and massive padding and stuff like that. I'm sure that some of the research will bear out that they were protected from cosmic rays sufficiently that they'll be able to use these suits. I hope that that's the case, because these massive suits just are untenable position for the general public. And these suits, just like the other suits, are water cooled and pressurized. So they're only at a pressure of about 5 psi. But the water cooling is very important because in a vacuum, there's no transfer of heat. So your body is being bombarded by the sun, and it's absorbing these photons, but it's not kicking out the heat. So you need the water cooling. The bigger suits actually had a problem, as did the smaller suit, in a previous attempt to do a spacewalk, that it leaks. And in a couple of cases, my understanding that I read a while back was that the suit filled up, and not the new suit, the old suit filled up, and they had to pull the helmet off the person. Otherwise, they would have drowned out there.
Well, this thing was a big deal because it was the farthest they've gone since the early 1970s, including regular space missions. And then also, one other thing that was neat about this, and I think a precursor flight, is that at least one of the participants is using this as a charity fundraiser.
Neat.
Which I think is neat.
Yeah, that's great. And they tested the flight suit. But if you watch the video, it looks weird. I don't know, kind of creepy. But I'm glad that there's somebody out there that's doing it. It would be neat to do it. You can send me if you want. That's fine. Just send me to Mars. Just never mind. There's a lot of jokes online because somebody asked how you would get people to Mars, and Elon Musk basically hinted at, well, you can finance it and then work on Mars to pay it off.
Yeah, that sounds like a win.
people lost their mind about that. Like, there is no way I'm going to be basically indentured servitude. How the hell? So I don't pay the fee. You're going to bring me back home? Yeah, right.
Worse than that, they're going to just send you off planet or
just
something.
Just vent you right there. Anyway, let's keep moving. The next article is over in Warcrafters. Pocket Pair confirms Palworld isn't turning into a live service game and won't be free to play. Quote, "We are not changing our game's business model." So something came out over the last couple of days. There was a comment that was made that they're basically struggling with a decision to make Palworld a live service. And if that's the case, they have to push out a server, they're going to have to push out an update that kills the server, because you can run Palworld all by yourself right now. You don't have to pay anybody. So it says, when you think about it from a business perspective, Mizobi replied, making Palworld a live service game would extend its lifespan and make it more stable in terms of profitability. However, the game was not initially designed with that approach in mind, so there may be challenges involved in taking it down the live service path. Yeah, like changing the entirety of the terms in which the software was purchased.
Well, right. And I mean, we know how much customers love live service games.
Or changing the terms of the actual contract under which something was purchased. Like the Crew. The server should have been released to anybody who bought that. If you're not going to leave it as a live service, then release the server to anybody who wants to run it. Done. Solve that problem. Licensing be damned. It's not their fault that you screwed up somewhere, so you had better find a middle ground and open that up so that everybody can download a server and run it for themselves. The same thing is happened. I would probably say the exact same thing happened with Ticket to Ride, because they say that there was a licensing issue that led to the redesign of it, and it's a shit redesign, and they expect people to repay for it. And I think that everybody should do a class action for that as well. The same thing for the Crew. It should be a class action, because I bought something with an expectation of performance, and then you decide that it's no longer economically viable. Then you need to make me whole, because you lived off of the money that everybody paid. That's the same thing with Palworld. If they make it a live service and they kill the server operation because they push an update to people, disabling the ability to run your own server, and it goes live service only, so I have to either pay or whatever to get access to the live service, you're changing the foundational terms at which something was purchased. You should not be legally allowed to do that. You're changing the contract, right?
Right. And I guess I don't understand why a game maker doesn't figure some of this out beforehand. This seems like such an obvious question to address before you release it.
Well, they didn't know how successful Palworld was going to be. So they were like, well, let's get this money and run. That kind of a thing, right? But then it turned into a phenomenon online. They have made, I think, hundreds of millions of dollars because of the number of sales. So they have, as long as they reinvest it to some degree, they could draw from their investment forever, and it would be an ongoing concern forever. But that's probably not what's actually happening. Who knows where the money is ending up? But for them to pivot to a live service, I think should be downright freaking illegal. But the EU has said, well, you can't force a business to run an operation forever. No, but you can force them to fulfill the obligations of the original purchased contract. I purchased a game. The expectation was I should be able to use it with my friends and whoever else wants to purchase the game and connect via a server. And when you decide, and it wasn't a live service all the time, right? Like, it was, but it wasn't. I should be able to connect to the server. And then you decided, well, the live service portion of it, I don't like. It's costing me money. So release it. That is the proper solution, the ethical, moral solution, not the greedy bastard solution. Is it a 20-year-old game or 10-year-old game? Yeah, sure. But there's enough people there that it irritated enough people. But because they're sociopathic, they can just sit there and go, I don't care. I got the money, screw you, bye. And they turn it off, you know? And that's what this is on the cusp of doing. But there was so much immediate blowback. It's like the Helldivers thing. People went livid about Helldivers changing what was required to access the live service. So Jody McGregor over at PCGamer.com put the article together. And they end up talking about what I'm talking about. It's common for live service games to be free to play with paid elements such as skins and battle passes. He said people are pissed if this thing goes battle pass because you have to pay to access certain functions. But Palworld is a buy to play game, so it's difficult to turn it into a live service game from the ground up. Not difficult. It's a piece of shit. It should be an extension. Go ahead. Spin up servers, make it a live service, but don't hobble my ability to run my own server, connect with my friends on my server. I'm paying for it, my server, and I paid for the game in good faith. You know, we need to hobble this shit like now. We need to lean into it now. And I think that we as a society, the consumers, really should go after the people who did that crap with the crew. And I think that we should do a class action for Ticket to Ride because all of that's just all kinds of bullshit right there. And I know that people are pissed off about it, particularly on Steam, because they pivoted to a PC model. And instead of adding stuff, they took it away. You can add all day long and have me pay DLC, downloadable content fees. Fine. Spin up a live service so that you afford something new and unique and something value add. Fine. You're adding. But when you start taking away, you're cutting off what I've already paid for. And I think that that should be illegal. Fundamentally illegal. No, you don't have to run a service forever in perpetuity at your loss. But if you find that you are at a loss, release the server and everybody is happy.
So this company is not going in this direction.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. And
But
also, this, like something else we recently featured, was because of a media interview where I think some of the interviewers are trying to get somebody to say something controversial. So it may not have even been something they were really considering.
I don't think that that's actually, I think it's disingenuous because what was initially commented on, posted online, was that they were struggling to figure out ... So to me, I think that this is a lot of backtracking, and only time will tell, because in 6 months, when the live service comes online and they push a patch, we'll know. So, and there's documentation and historical record of just how much of a bastard move that is. Let's keep moving. So the next article is over in Technology Today, Unlocking Yeast Killer Instinct to Save Craft Beer. So killer toxins produced by Saccharomyces strains have been found to inhibit beer spoiling diastatic yeast, offering an economical solution for managing beer contamination in craft breweries. Diastatic yeast can spoil craft beer through hyperattenuation, which boosts the alcohol content and causes bottles to explode. What? Alcohol conversion doesn't cause bottles to explode. The overcarbonation does. It's created by pressures created by yeast tooting into beer, overcarbonating it, and then it becomes a bottle bomb is what it's called, particularly in craft beers. So I'm not quite sure what they're saying here, but anyway, let's move past it. Killer toxins, which are produced by other yeast strains, hint at a possible solution. So American Society for Microbiology posted this article over at SciTech Daily. Killer toxins, which are produced by other yeast strains, hint at a remedy. In a proof of concept study, researchers found that killer toxins inhibited up to 95% of diastatic yeast. More work is needed. This might, I don't know. There's other ways to inhibit attenuation, but that's not what causes. Okay, I've never heard that before. Hyperattenuation, yes, but oh, I'm sorry. The way that read was that it boosts alcohol content and causes bottles to explode. Hyperattenuation.
Right, hyperattenuation is causing the explosion, but I thought you were disagreeing with that part.
I'm disagreeing that it's the alcohol content that causes the bottles to explode. It's the production of carbon dioxide, which is part of hyperattenuation. Anyway, and there's also other issues with hyperattenuation, like diacetyl protection and or diacetyl. Anyway, so one way to remedy the problem before bottles start to break might be hiding in plain sight. In Applied and Environmental Microbiology, a group of brewers and microbiologists report the solution to this yeast problem is maybe another yeast. The researchers found that proteins called killer toxins, which are produced naturally by many strains of s3e259, suppress diastatic strains and may help curb the issue. This is kind of one of these dangerous games because, not really dangerous, you could basically ruin your brew by killing the yeast too soon. So you would have to know, and then to add additional yeast, particularly as a craft brewer or home brewer, you'd have to break the seal on your fermentation, which can be okay, but any oxygen would basically ruin your brew.
Right, and plus, if you don't really know what you're doing, you could ruin it by just the simple addition of the other yeast, right? That's going to change the flavor, etc.
Yep. So it says effective remediation procedures using killer yeast. It says if you've got a diastatic contamination, most of the time you just throw away the beer, and that's expensive. What we show in the paper is that we can add killer yeast to the point of contamination, or at the point of contamination. It's a remediation procedure to prevent the diastatic strains from taking off, but I would probably say, when they talk about craft brewers, they're talking about like nano and bigger, not home brewers.
Right.
But most craft brewers wouldn't even know, not until after it's done. Sorry for the coughing. So challenges in identifying and controlling diastatic yeast. Yeah, if you were looking at the strains on an agar plate, you couldn't morphologically tell the difference. See, that's what I'm telling you, that it takes a lab to do this kind of stuff. Yeast looks like yeast.
Oh, I see. So you can just look at it at home and go, okay, here's what I need to do.
Yeah, and if you're... I don't know of any at-home tests for yeast management in terms of deciding what is a good yeast and a bad yeast, contamination, what might be killing off your yeast, etc. Everything is always a lab. There's various pieces of equipment, but I think the cheapest piece of equipment I've ever seen, scientific piece of equipment for even at home, is $1,000. So larger breweries avoid the problem by pasteurizing beer, but the process is expensive, and some small brewers worry that pasteurization changes the taste. True. Any additional heat past the boil changes the content of the beer, the fermentation tank, the vessel. So you actually want to keep it at a sustained percentage or lower, and if you keep on moving it back and forth, you can change the flavor.
Well, that's true. So you're working against yourself.
Yeah, if you start messing around, and particularly pasteurization, because you have to pasteurize, you have to get to a certain point, and at that point you're already changing flavors. So, exploratory research and future directions. The research began a few years ago when Ketchum was teaching an applied microbiology brewing class at a community college in Cincinnati. As he prepared a lecture on wild yeast and killer toxins, he realized that the proteins might offer an inexpensive way to remedy diastatic contamination. He ran a few experiments, presented preliminary findings at the World Brewing Congress in 2020, and discussed the work on a Beer Brewers podcast where the mention of killer yeast caught Rowley's attention. So Rowley worked with undergraduates, subjected 34 diastatic strains of yeast to Saccharomyces strains producing 8 known killer toxins. The most effective, K1, prevented the growth of more than 91% of diastatic strains tested. So, yeah.
I wonder if this is the first time a podcast has led to scientific research.
Oh, probably not. The conversation seems to, really be entrenched in this. They're all apparently scientists.
That's true. Okay, so aside from the conversation, but I get it.
Yeah. I'm sure. I mean, random conversations always lead to discoveries. I think that it's really admirable. The more people communicate, I think, and that's one of the reasons why I like doing the show, is because I'm trying to get people to pay attention to certain articles that we find intriguing and we think that others are going to find intriguing, and that can promote conversation. So mostly offline too, like not necessarily only online. It's out there in research labs where stuff is getting done. So I always love this stuff. And so this is kind of interesting. I'm sure it was submitted because I'm on the cusp of launching another show. I'm actually backing off of some of the shows. I don't think that we're not aggregating enough content, I think, in some of the shows for us to do them every week. And so I'm backing off on a couple of shows. But one that I really, because of the way that I live my life, I like to root around in different topics, do a deep dive. And right now I'm doing one on brewing and distilling. And because I can't actually distill in the United States legally without a commercial lab, I'm forced to focus on brewing. And so I'm actually working on a product that I'm developing. So stay tuned, and it'll be side by side with a show, because I'll be demonstrating what I do, and it's kind of similar to the whole hydroponic system that I've got. I developed a disparate style, not disparate, a differentiated style of hydroponics from others. And I find it quite promising, and maybe I'll show that sometime as soon as I can make it a little. The lab that it is developed in is not one that's primed for streaming video from. So anyway, basically the same thing with the beer brewing show. All right. Let's go on to the last article, and the last article is over in the Continuity Report, 10 awesome movie Easter eggs that stayed hidden in plain sight for years. I love Easter eggs. I love sitting there watching a show and then finding out later something that I saw was actually an Easter egg, and I just never know what is an Easter egg and what was intentional until somebody goes, hey, did you see that? Yeah, that was supposed to be an Easter egg. I tend to be one of those people that sees something, and because I can't explain it, I just kind of discount it. Like the one time that I was at a Denny's and I saw a button. There's an inside joke there. Pardon me one second.
Well, I also think it's neat if you have seen a movie and then it's like, did you see all the Easter eggs in it? What?
What? There were Easter eggs? So, filmmakers often put Easter eggs in their movies as a bonus for audiences who are more observant, often because they are passionate enough to watch a movie many times. They can either be references to other movies, small signatures from the director, or signatures, I guess, and hidden details that add to the story. So the article is over at Screen Rant. It's put together by Ben Prothero. Oh, I have an account. Just let me in. It's not letting me in. Hold on a second. There it goes. Sorry. So it says these days people can find comprehensive lists of Easter eggs in movies online just a few days after it hits theaters. This makes it even more exciting when somebody discovers a hidden reference that's been laying in plain sight. So there's a potato asteroid in Empire Strikes Back, but I guess it's an actual potato.
I'm not sure.
Each Star Wars movie has been analyzed frame by frame for decades. Apparently, during the Millennium Falcon escape in the Empire Strikes Back, Han pilots the ship through a dense asteroid field with some strangely shaped objects. One of the asteroids narrowly misses the Millennium Falcon. It is actually a potato, while the other one is a tennis shoe.
Okay, that's pretty funny.
All right. That's funny because I never even realized that. Groot's biblical symbolism, Guardians of the Galaxy 2014. Oh god, it's already been 10 years. So it says, after a sacrifice he is resurrected, albeit as a small twig dancing in a pot. Also on top of his head resembles a crown. Gunn was raised in a Catholic family, so it's no wonder that he uses religious imagery in Guardians of the Galaxy. That's just weird. Is that really? That is an actual Easter egg?
Yes, because James Gunn revealed it.
That's an actual, yeah, it says it reveals an Easter egg that he put in Guardians of the Galaxy years later after nobody pointed it out to him. Maybe because it doesn't come across looking like an Easter egg.
Right.
Why would there be? That's so subtle it doesn't even. After his sacrifice, he is resurrected.
Well,
you
up
really
above
have to
it
force
says
that.
he does a sacrifice, like a religious figure does.
All right. Binford Tools. This is over in Toy Story, Binford Tools. So Home Improvement, Binford Tools was the shop, the company that Alan's character works for in Home Improvement. Pixar fans are always on the lookout for Pizza Planet Truck, the Luxo Ball, and the code A113, which is that is the classroom where the animators usually come from in like California Institute of the Arts or something like that. I can't remember the actual origin of it, but A113 is a room number if I recall correctly. Hold on. We'll make sure. It's a joke, inside joke of the animators of Pixar turned into a phenomenon. It's a classroom number where many Pixar employees, California Institute of the Arts. So yeah, I remembered correctly. And Luxo Ball is from Pixar, and Pizza Planet Truck has been in several of the other movies, but I can't remember the origin of it.
I only know it from the Toy Story movies.
Yeah. And I can't remember where it's actually from, but so apparently that's the Binford Tools one. And then number 7 is White Robe's product placement in Truman Show. Truman Show has layers. So one of the less obvious ways that the Truman Show uses the idea of product placement has to do with the costumes of the characters in Truman's life. Meryl is seen wearing a white robe with a subtle floral pattern at one point, and the same robe is seen being worn by a viewer later in the movie. Oh, that doesn't come across as an Easter egg as so much as one of the many. Right, that they're selling products and that it's part of a TV show.
Right.
Because the audience finds out that he's part of a TV show earlier on. So Quentin Tarantino's Simpsons reference in Kill Bill 1. Tarantino wore a t-shirt with the image of the Simpsons character while doing press for Kill Bill Volume 2, suggesting that he knew exactly what he was doing. And that's because he had I guess Itchy and Scratchy cartoon that parodies Reservoir Dogs. Tarantino then appears on screen, although not played by himself, to explain the message of the cartoon. He states that violence is everywhere in society, even in breakfast cereals.
This is actually a really interesting one because apparently Simpsons reference Tarantino and then Kill Bill references The Simpsons. I kind of like that.
So who did it first? Did the Simpsons referenced Tarantino?
Yes.
So the adage is true. Simpsons did it first. It's always the Simpsons did it first. Queen Diana in Back to the Future Part 2. One tiny detail shows that the movie predicted that by 2025, Princess Diana would become Queen Diana. Of course, not only did Princess Diana leave the royal family before her death, but Queen Elizabeth II was still on the throne in 2015. This prediction happens in a headline of the newspaper Marty reads and to try and figure out what decade he found himself in. So where is that?
Yeah, I don't see that on there.
I'm trying to find it. I don't know. I don't see it. Maybe it's on under the fold. I don't know.
Right.
Something. Oh, Queen Diana's visit right there.
Oh, okay.
Washington prepares for Queen Diana's visit. Interesting. Wizards getting intimate on the Marauders map. Oh, really? Oh, my. One way to hide an Easter egg is to put it in the movie's end credits. Well, that takes on a whole new meaning. Never mind. Anyway, let's keep moving. Hal cheats at chess. So a more sinister interpretation could be that Hal intentionally makes an error to test Frank. Hal convinces Frank that he cannot win, or rather, Frank is manipulated into reaching the conclusion himself. This could suggest that Hal is already malfunctioning in some way. Yeah, he's coded to cheat, and lie, manipulate, do whatever he can. Or Hal isn't actually Hal at that point, the sentient entity that has control over reality on the spaceship on the Odyssey.
So I didn't see why this was an Easter egg, but it looks like it's referencing something that actually happened.
Yeah, they're playing chess. And then later on, there's other things where the computer is like, I can't do that, Hal. Or, I can't do that, Dave. Basically showing that Hal has been compromised in some way. But Kubrick movies are a space odyssey to begin with. Morse code trickery in King Kong. The map of Dune in Moonrise Kingdom, which I've not seen Moonrise Kingdom. Apparently there's an Easter egg in that. It's likely that new Easter eggs will keep being found in Anderson movies for years to come. The Moonrise Kingdom Easter egg has gone unnoticed for over a decade, but it's appropriate that it's been discovered now with the success of Denis Villeneuve's Dune saga.
It has a map from Dune.
Yeah, it has apparently the back cover. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Oh, that's the last one. That was number 1. I've never seen Moonrise Kingdom. Wes Anderson is famous for exercising full artistic control over the tiny details. In Anderson's coming-of-age love story, Moonrise Kingdom, Susie is frequently seen reading sci-fi and fantasy novels. None of the novels are real, but one of them has a map from Frank Herbert's Dune on the back cover. That's not these. All right. Pretty cool. So there you go, folks. Out you go and go find more Easter eggs. And we got a bunch of movies to watch again.
That's right.
Dun, 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 to see if we can find them. Binford was a really well-known one. All right. But that's it. Ta-da!
I think the neatest one was the potato and the shoe asteroids.
The shoe is the hilarious one. I mean, potato, I can see that. A shoe? Anyway, that's it for today's Non Sequitur news, and we will see you. That's hilarious. Yeah, I know. We'll see you next week. No, we'll see you tomorrow, but just blink like you're looking for a Easter egg. Oh, look, I found an Easter egg, and it brings us back to ohmTown.com. That's where you should go and become a citizen of ohmTown. Then come and hang out with us here, either on Twitch or YouTube. You can always download the podcast, hang out in the Discord, hang out with us. That'd be great. I'd love to see you here. In the meantime,
Like and
see you later.
subscribe.
Oh yeah, be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment over on YouTube. Liking helps us tremendously. The algorithm actually is really confused by us because we're a show that doesn't focus on one particular topic, and that makes the algorithm kind of throw up. And so it's actually part of what I'm trying to solve by backing off on our other shows. So while we may not be doing the shows regularly, they will
The weekly shows.
The weekly shows, the daily show, the Non Sequitur news show will always be running. But the weekly shows are going to be kind of hit or miss. But if you want all of that news that we would normally talk about, it's always available over at ohmTown.com. You can actually get to each one of the channels that we talk about, like Warcrafters, Reality Hacker. Wanted is down here. Wanted may actually be redone as a steady state kind of a weekly show because it's much more highly focused on gadgets and gear. And the continuity report will be every weekend as well. So that said, that's it for today. I'm gonna reset everything, and we will launch the weekly replay so that if you missed any of the Non Sequitur news or the last week of our weekly shows, they are still in play. So see you in a little bit. I am Merwat, and the voice you're about to hear is that of the Sentient AI.
Night, ohmTown citizens. Thanks for joining us for Non Sequitur News. Actually, that would be the continuity report. It's because the main page of Non Sequitur News or the main channel was on there, so that threw me off. So come back tomorrow for another Non Sequitur News.
You said that, I was like, what show am I actually doing right now?
I don't know. Some show.
Oh, Sentient AI hallucination.
Exactly.
See y'all later. Oh, I cracked my Easter egg.